A friggin' Mercedes sitting in the garage.
Ever stumbled upon a Lamborghini in the middle of a field? Or a vintage classic just rotting in someone's backyard?
It's an iconic Mustang, so it's definitely worth my time.
These aren't just any cars. They were once showpieces and status symbols, the pride of billionaires. Now,
molded into the ground that it sits on. Look at this. Clearly hasn't moved in so long.
well, they're collecting rust, buried in debris and forgotten by time, or maybe hidden on purpose. Today, we're counting down 15 of the most incredible luxury cars left to rot. Stick around, because the number one spot might just leave you speechless. Number 1. Rare supercars found in a North Carolina garage. The last thing anyone expected was the walls of an old house in North Carolina hiding a fortune on 4 wheels. But behind a dusty garage door, sealed shut for nearly 3 decades, that was exactly what they found. Under a thick blanket of dust and cobwebs sat 2 rare treasures. One was a Ferrari 275 GTB. The other was a 427 Shelby Cobra, and both were from the 1960s. The cars had been parked there since 1991. Their owner, who never gave his name, had locked the garage and never touched them again. The reason? His trusted mechanic died suddenly in a motorcycle accident that year. After that, he didn't let anyone else near the cars. He kept telling himself he would find someone new. But the years slipped by, and so did the chance. Nature moved in instead. Crickets chirped under the tires. Mice found shelter in the seats. The property itself was set to be demolished, so a new house could go up. That's when the owner finally called in some classic car experts to see what he had. What they uncovered was worth millions. The Shelby Cobra, still looking fierce despite the grime, is one of only 260 ever built for the street, with a 428 cubic inch engine. Surprisingly, it doesn't need a full restoration. That alone sends collectors buzzing. The Ferrari, in particular, stood out. It had only 13,000 miles on it, which is rare for a car that rolled off the line over 50 years ago. Under the hood sat a 3.3-liter V12 engine, sleek and aggressive, even with the dust dulling its shine. In today's market, a pristine version of this exact model can fetch close to $3 million, not pocket change. Celebrities like Eric Clapton and Steve McQueen were known to be fans of the 275 GTB, which makes finding one in this condition even more unreal. There was also a Morgan with a V8 and a Triumph TR6 tucked away in the same space, but the owner decided those ones aren't going anywhere. Sometimes holding on to something for too long pays off in more ways than one. If you are into stories like this, unexpected finds, rare machines, and everything in between, make sure to subscribe. You never know what's getting uncovered next. Number 2. Aston Martin DB5, buried in the woods. Out of all the places to leave a rare British classic, someone chose the woods. Not a barn, not a garage, just trees, dirt, and time. The car, which was an Aston Martin DB5, was buried beneath a blanket of dead leaves and surrounded by towering oaks in a Massachusetts backyard. The rear tires had already started sinking into the soft ground, and the rubber had cracked and peeled. Give it a few more years, and the whole thing might have blended into the forest floor. This particular DB5 was built in the UK in 1960 and shipped to the United States the following year. It was eventually registered and driven for a while, but by the early 1970s, the owner parked it outside his home and never moved it again. Decades passed, and with each fall, moisture crept in. Rust started to eat at the frame. Trees grew taller around it, almost like they were trying to hide what had been forgotten. Then, after years of silence, someone finally pulled it out. Experts got to work, repairing what could be saved and replacing what was too far gone. It took a lot of money and even more patience, but the DB5 was brought back to life. This car wasn't known just for its looks. It was the first production model capable of going from 0 to 100 miles per hour in under 30 seconds. After the restoration, it went up for auction with expectations of reaching over $500,000. It is easy to dream about finding one of these parked somewhere, but fixing a car like this is a serious investment. So unless you have deep pockets, maybe don't leave your own car in the woods and hope for a miracle. Number 3. Classic Bugatti, found in garage. Time forgot about this car, but that didn't stop it from becoming one of the most valuable finds in years. There it was, a 1937 Bugatti Type 57 S Adelante. Only 17 were ever made, and this one sat forgotten since 1960, locked away like some forbidden treasure. The owner, a British doctor, drove it a few times before deciding the garage was a better place for it than the open road. Maybe he thought he was preserving it, maybe he just got busy. Whatever the reason, it hadn't moved in nearly 40 years. Under the dust and decades, the car was nearly intact. No rusted heap, no broken down frame. It had aged in silence. The family had no idea what they had on their hands until the doctor passed away in 2007. His nephew was the one who found it while going through the garage. What looked like an old vehicle under a tarp turned out to be a jackpot. Experts were called in. Once the dust was cleared and the records matched, the reality sank in. They had something incredibly valuable on their hands. The Bugatti Type 57 S Adelante could easily bring in over $5 million at auction. People who collect things like this don't just buy cars. They collect a piece of history. This model had a 3.3-liter inline-8 engine, which could push it to over 120 miles per hour back when most cars were just figuring out how to climb hills. It's not every day someone stumbles on a vintage car with that kind of power and value. Number 4. The Rolls-Royce of Lamborghini. Nobody expected a Lamborghini to show up in a quiet English barn that smelled like hay and rain. But this was what someone stumbled on while clearing out an old estate in Kendall, deep in the Lake District. There, hidden under a layer of dust, cobwebs, and bird droppings, was a 1970s Lamborghini Espada 512. Not just any version either. This one had a right-hand drive, made specifically for the British market. Only about 130 of those were ever built out of the 1,200 total Espadas Lamborghini produced between 1968 and 1978. That detail alone makes this particular Espada incredibly rare. Back in its day, the car earned the nickname Rolls-Royce of Lamborghini because of how well the inside was designed. The wood paneling, plush seats, and attention to detail gave it that feel. It was powerful too, with its V12 engine giving off a low growl that people remembered long after it passed. The man who found it had simply been hired to clean out the barn. The original owner had dropped the car off for storage decades ago, and then vanished without a trace. No word, no paperwork, no return, just silence. Surprisingly, it was the owl droppings that saved the Espada. The scent helped keep rodents away, which meant the wiring, upholstery, and dashboard remained in surprisingly decent shape. Once specialists were contacted, the car was carefully extracted and prepared for auction. Depending on its condition after a full inspection and restoration, a car like this can bring in anywhere from $150,000 to well over $250,000. What would you have done if you had walked into that barn and found that Espada? Drop your answers in the comments. Number 5. Rare Countach. They say legends never die, but sometimes they do end up gathering dust in a forgotten garage. In June of 1984, this Lamborghini Countach 5000S landed in Rome, ready to tear through streets and steal attention everywhere it went. It was sharp, fast, and impossible to ignore. Somewhere along the way, though, it crossed the Atlantic and vanished, becoming just another shape under a dusty cover in a Connecticut garage. That's where classic car restorer Vinnie Russo came in. When he got word about a rare European spec Countach sitting neglected in the United States, curiosity took over. What he found wasn't just tired, it was tragic. The engine cover was gone, random junk was stacked on top, and layers of dirt, spiderwebs, and bird droppings swallowed the once bright red body. A car that once symbolized wealth and power now looked like it had been forgotten by time. Even so, the original key still sat in the ignition. When the curated team showed up, they aired the long-dead Pirelli tires, lifted the car out, and hauled it off to a detailing studio. The wheels came off. The layers of grime were stripped away. Bit by bit, the bold red paint peeked through again. The detailers didn't just clean the outside either. Inside the engine bay, there were piles of mouse and chipmunk droppings, along with their food stashes. Everything had to go. Then came the paint correction, the rinsing, the brushing. Slowly, the car began to breathe again. Eventually, the 1985 Countach made its way to Miami for full restoration by Curated. These cars average around $595,000, but mint condition examples can fetch over $1.5 million. One sold for $2.5 million in Austin, Texas, with only 85 miles on it. It's funny how one neglected garage held something collectors would pay millions of dollars to own. Number 6. Ferrari 512 BB. Not every treasure is buried underground. Some are hiding under thick dust, bird droppings, and straw inside a forgotten barn. That is exactly where a pair of YouTubers came across a Ferrari 512 BB that had not seen daylight in 28 years. The car sat there like it had been waiting for someone to remember it. Straw clung to its windshield, leaves were trapped in the vents, and bird mess streaked the once shiny red hood. The owner, an older man, had bought the Ferrari years ago. At the time, he had also picked up a Lamborghini Miura. Then life happened. The Ferrari was driven a few times, then parked away as priorities shifted to raising a family and everything that came with that. Over time, the garage became storage. Then the car was pushed aside until it faded into the background. The YouTubers had their work cut out for them. Armed with an all-purpose cleaner and a pressure washer, they started scrubbing away years of dirt without damaging the paint. One of the side windows had a crack in it, so they taped it up to keep the inside from getting soaked. Slowly, the red began to show again, reflecting light like it had just come out of the showroom. The Ferrari 512 BB is one of the clearest icons from the BB era, built between the 70s and early 80s. BB stands for Berlinetta Boxer, Berlinetta for the two-door sports coupe body, and Boxer for the flat 12 engine under the rear hood that pushed out 360 horsepower. It was the kind of car people put posters of on their bedroom walls. Now, in today's market, a clean 512 BB can go for several $100,000. Not bad for something that spent nearly 3 decades parked beside hay bales. Number 7. $3 million Ferrari abandoned in Dubai. In a city where luxury cars are as common as coffee shops, one hypercar managed to vanish in plain sight. That was until someone snapped a photo of it buried in dust, sitting quietly in a Dubai police impound lot. And not just any flashy sports car. This was an Enzo Ferrari. Back in 2002, Ferrari built only 400 of them. It was a tribute to the brand's founder and came with a price tag around $600,000 at launch. Today, one in good shape can be worth over $3 million. That makes what happened next even harder to understand. The Enzo had been sitting there since 2011. The British owner had abandoned it in a parking lot and left the country. Dubai, known for its strict financial laws, impounded the car. It sat there under the sun, locked behind a fence like it had done something wrong. For a while, it became an odd attraction. People came by, pointed through the gate, and snapped photos like it was some wild animal behind glass. But this one wasn't headed to auction like most of the other forgotten luxury cars. Interpol got involved. Turns out the Enzo may have been bought with stolen money, or it may have been stolen altogether. The case ended up in court, and things stalled. For now, it sits in legal limbo. Thankfully, someone had the sense to move it indoors before the heat and dust destroyed it completely. It might not be free, but at least it is not roasting under the desert sky anymore. Number 8. BM-M1. Somewhere in southern Italy, under layers of dust and a few decades of silence, a rare BMW M1 sat tucked away like it had been forgotten on purpose. The kind of sight that makes car lovers freeze, squint, and wonder how a car like this ended up in that state. It had been sitting there for more than 30 years, but it wasn't just the age that caught attention. This particular M1 had barely been driven, showing just over 4,500 miles on the odometer. That's less than some people put on their cars in a single year. It hadn't seen roads, speed, or sunlight in ages. Built back in the late 1970s, the BMW M1 was the company's first shot at a true supercar. Mid-engine layout, a 3.5-liter straight-six engine, and a top speed of around 165 miles per hour. Only 453 of them were ever made. That low production number alone makes it a serious collector's item today. One in good shape can sell for about $500,000. BMW Classic later stepped in and brought this one back to life in Munich. Cleaned up, tuned, and restored with great care, it went up for sale in 2018, but after that, the trail went quiet. No one seems to know where it is now or who owns it. Hopefully it ended up with someone who knows what they are holding on to. And fun fact, if you have seen the actor Paul Walker's collection, he had an M1 too. Says a lot when even car-obsessed celebrities knew how special this one was. Number 9. Audi R8 Spider. When COVID hit, we all lost track of time. Some people lost track of their cars too. That's exactly what happened with this 2010 Audi R8 Spider, which sat abandoned outside for 5 years. One of the windows was left cracked open, and that small opening was enough to let nature crawl inside and mess up the interior. The car was found by 2 YouTube channels, Detail Dane and WD Detailing, who teamed up to bring it back to life. The R8 belonged to the previous owner of the home, and when they sold the house, the new buyers apparently said it was fine to leave the car there for a while. But then, pandemic hit, and a few weeks turned into months. Months eventually turned into 5 full years. Now, this particular R8 Spider boasts a 5.2-liter V10 engine, delivering 525 horsepower and a top speed nearing 194 miles per hour. When new, it was priced around $163,000. Notably, the R8 Spider gained fame as Tony Stark's car in the Iron Man films, driven by Robert Downey Jr. Unfortunately, this particular R8 was far from heroic when it was found. Years of exposure had taken a serious toll. The air ride suspension was damaged, likely by mice, and the battery was completely dead. It took the team 4 hours to free the car from its spot, with the wheels firmly stuck. They transported it to a garage, powered it up, and began the extensive restoration process. Upon starting, the R8 emitted smoke from the engine and black smoke from the exhaust when revved. Despite these issues, the team successfully brought the car back to life. Number 10. Supercars abandoned in a Chinese dealership. Sometimes rare finds don't come from barns or private garages. They sit behind glass windows while the world walks right past. That was the case when YouTuber F-Spot stumbled across a scene in China that looked more like a forgotten showroom than a crime against car lovers. Behind the smudged windows of a closed-down dealership sat a 2004 Porsche Carrera GT, collecting dust. The doors were locked, the lights off, but the car was there, unmistakable even under the layer of neglect. The Carrera GT is no average machine. It's got a 5.7-liter V10 engine that can hit 0 to 60 in just over 3 seconds. With only 1,270 units made, it's one of the most sought-after supercars of its time. At auctions, it regularly breaks the $1 million mark, especially for low-mileage examples. Actor Paul Walker famously owned and drove one, and it's not hard to see why. The sound, the power, the rawness of it. It's a car that doesn't apologize for what it is, but it wasn't alone. Just a few steps away sat a Ferrari Super America, known for its unique rotating glass roof and rare manual transmission option. That car in good shape can easily fetch up to $700,000, depending on the specs. Not far from it was a Corvette Z06, its sharp lines barely visible under layers of dust. All three looked like they had been paused mid-scene and forgotten. It's believed the dealership's closure ties back to anti-corruption efforts in China during the early 2010s. Since then, the cars have sat untouched, almost like time forgot them. And while the engines have stayed silent, they haven't lost their value or their presence, just their chance to be driven. Number 11. Forgotten Maybach. In 2012, a Maybach was spotted sitting in an outdoor parking spot in Cannes, France. At the time, it had been left untouched for over 4 years. That is like abandoning $500,000 in a public lot and hoping nobody notices. But people did notice. You could tell by the messages scrawled across its dust-covered body. Back when it was new, this car cost around $380,000, depending on the customization. With a 5.5-liter twin-turbocharged V12 engine under the hood, this thing could push 543 horsepower. Designed for CEOs and heads of state, its interior once came with massaging leather seats, fold-out tables, and a rear entertainment system. Kanye West owned one just like it, often seen stepping out of it during his early Watch the Throne era. But here it was. All of that class faded under layers of dust. The chrome that once caught sunlight had dulled, and the proud Maybach hood ornament was gone, likely snatched off like a trophy. Even the suspension had given up, letting the car sag until the chassis nearly kissed the ground. It almost looked like the lot itself was trying to reclaim it. You could imagine the interior packed with cobwebs, old wrappers, maybe even something that should not be inside a car. Seats, once worth more than some people's rent, are now likely torn or molded. It was a legend in its time, but now it's just another parking lot casualty. Number 12. Diamond Weave Koenigsegg Trevita abandoned in Zurich. Imagine walking into an underground garage and spotting something that looks like it belongs in a Billionaires' locked vault, just sitting there like someone forgot it after a grocery run. That is exactly how this Koenigsegg Trevita was found. It was parked inside a parking garage, which at first sounds better than being out in the rain or snow. But let's not sugarcoat it. Whether it is parked under a roof or outside in a thunderstorm, if the engine has not made a sound in months, that is abandonment. And this is not just your average exotic. The Trevita is wrapped in diamond weave carbon fiber that actually shimmers under light, which is probably why people can't resist laying their hands on it. Fingerprints have started to build up on the body panels, as if every curious car enthusiast that passed by felt the need to connect with it. Only 2 of these were ever made. Koenigsegg had to stop production because the diamond-infused carbon fiber was so difficult to work with. So, finding one of them just sitting there is like finding a gold bar in the back of a closet. This particular model is estimated to be worth around $2.2 million. Floyd Mayweather famously owned one and used to show it off in his garage full of other million-dollar toys. But here, this one sat quietly. A $1,000 parking bill had stacked up before anyone realized the car was not going anywhere. Even the company leasing out the space admitted they were caught off guard. Supposedly, it belongs to a wealthy executive from Schwitz, which somehow makes the whole thing even more on-brand. It is hard to tell if he forgot about it or just got bored. Either way, the car deserved better than being slowly covered by fingerprints and dust, one quiet day at a time. Number 13. The rare gull-wing Mercedes hidden for decades. Some garages hide junk, others hide treasure. This one definitely leaned toward the second category. Late in 2018, a group of car lovers followed a tip that led them straight to a forgotten icon in Jacksonville, Florida. The lead came from Bill Warner, the founder of the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance, which is no regular car meet. It is one of the most prestigious automotive events in the country, and he was right. Behind the creaking door of an old garage sat a 1954 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, covered in thick dust and almost forgotten by time. The chrome trim had been taken off and tucked away inside the car, almost like someone knew it might matter someday. This was no random 300 SL. It was the 43rd Gullwing ever made. That meant it carried some features only found on the earliest builds. According to Warner, he first saw the same car decades ago at a dealership when he was just 16. That was in 1965. And to prove it, an old newspaper from that exact year was found stuffed behind a cushion inside the car. The 300 SL changed the game when it came out. With gullwing doors that opened upward and a long hood hiding a 3-liter straight-six engine, it was originally built for racing. Only 1,400 of them were made between 1954 and 1957, and just 29 of those had all aluminum bodies. Those aluminum versions now sell for around $8.2 million if they are in concours shape. This barn find, though, is an unrestored, completely original example. Even in decent condition, it could be worth $1.35 million. That is the kind of find that makes enthusiasts hold their breath. Some finds are simply worth more than gold. If you agree, hit that like button. Number 14. Ferrari F40, left to bake in the desert. You know things are bad when a Ferrari looks like it has been left behind on Mars. Someone once stumbled across a forgotten red Ferrari F40, sitting lifeless in a garage in Iraq. At first glance, the car almost looked like a faded memory of what it used to be. Covered in sand, its once bright red paint had dulled into a tired, rusty shade that looked more brown than anything else. You might think it got stuck there after a joyride gone wrong, but that's far from the case. This particular F40 wasn't owned by just anyone. It belonged to Uday Saddam, the oldest son of Saddam Hussein. Known for his lavish lifestyle, Uday had this Ferrari tucked away like a secret. The strange part is, he never even drove it. He died before he ever got the chance to take it out of the garage. And from the way it looks, no one else dared to touch it either. Mechanics probably figured it was safer not to mess with anything linked to the Saddam family. So, there it stayed, like a trophy no one wanted to claim. When experts finally looked at the car in 2016, they found it stripped of key electrical parts. So, it couldn't start. A Ferrari specialist from Belgium reportedly flew in to try and bring it back to life, even planning a full rebuild of the engine. But bringing a car like that back isn't just about replacing a few wires and polishing the hood. You are dealing with a 2.9-liter twin-turbocharged V8, capable of pushing out 471 horsepower. Back when it first came out in 1987, the F40 was the fastest, most aggressive thing Ferrari had built. No anti-lock braking system, no traction control, just raw power and a focus on speed. It was also the last car approved by Enzo Ferrari himself. Even Mike Tyson had one. And if someone like Tyson could appreciate that kind of untamed machine, it says a lot. Now imagine that same car wasting away in silence, in a garage that's probably hotter than a furnace by noon. Not exactly where you would expect a Ferrari to end up. Number 15. Abandoned Bugatti Veyron, in Moscow. They say you can find strange things in parking garages, but a $2 million Bugatti Veyron covered in dust, that takes it to a new level. It was sitting there in a dimly lit underground garage in Moscow, surrounded by regular sedans and forgotten junk. The kind of place you wouldn't expect to find a hypercar that once held the title of the world's fastest production vehicle. Now, this particular Veyron was originally meant for a buyer in Dagestan. However, he never made it to the driver's seat. He was arrested before the delivery was complete. With no one left to claim it, a friend stepped in and stored the Veyron in a parking garage, thinking it would only be for a short while. That short while turned into 3 years. From 2016 to 2019, the Bugatti stayed there. Then someone stole the cover. Maybe they thought it was valuable. Maybe they had no idea what it was hiding. Without that cover, dust started to build up. Layers of it. And it didn't take long before people started noticing. One of them was a Russian YouTuber who couldn't believe what he found. He posted a video showing the forgotten supercar. No scratches, no dents, just dust and stillness. It was the type of video that makes you pause and ask, how does a car like that end up here? Now, the Bugatti Veyron isn't just any fast car. It came with an 8-liter W16 engine, 4 turbochargers, and 1,001 horsepower. It could hit 60 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. Even celebrities like Tom Cruise have been seen behind the wheel of one. Not many vehicles scream performance and status like it does. And yet, for several years, this one was left with no audience, no driver, no road. In 2019, it was quietly moved to a small town not far from Moscow. No one talked much about it. It remained there until late 2023. After that, its trail went cold. No updates, no new videos, just silence.